the messaging needs to change, but it's like, okay, Trump, you're the retribution and change guy. We're draining the swamp. This is America about to realize which side of the fence you're on. You got to pick a side.
This Epstein interest chart, we pulled it up. This is wild, Mark. I mean, I didn't know that it would be like this.
He has to get out in front of this now.
This is the past 5 years. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, you're just going on Google search volume like I am. That is parabolic. I mean, this is more than, you know, so Epstein gets suicided. You know, Epstein getting suicided, I guess, wouldn't be on this because it was in 2019. So we just barely missed it. I don't know if we can go back even further. But
yeah, it's all there.
Yeah, okay. So there you can see Epstein getting suicided right there. You see the spike. This, I mean, I thought that would maybe rival it if you were just asking me off the top of the dome, but not even close. Look at that. So what are we to make of this?
I said it in July. The second those words left her mouth, case closed. We were like, no, like I literally spurred out, went into the field, asked America, and America overwhelmingly agreed, no, the case is not closed. It was 16%, and yet 68% said there are wealthy and powerful predators that still need to go to jail. And it's like, if I wanted to be even a cynical, like just political strategy guy, I would have said, you know what? We have an FBI. We could just make this go away by telling everybody the FBI is investigating these folks. And my advice was get out in front of this, because if you don't, you're handing the Democrats something that's going to hang over you and haunt you for the rest of your political term. And now here we are. And so the messaging needs to change, but it's like, okay, Trump, you're the retribution and change guy. We're draining the swamp. This is America about to realize which side of the fence you're on. You got to pick a side, and it's got to be the side that attacks the system, or it's like multiples higher. Everybody saw the optics coming out of that jail, and a majority of America within a month was like, no. Of course he didn't kill himself.
No way.
So America, even back then, was smart enough. Everybody was watching, and now 5 times more people are watching. They're watching this instead of the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, and it's telling us things about our religious leaders. It's telling us things about our heads of state. It's telling us things about our business leaders, and the way the people at the top have absolutely no moral compunction about stepping on the little guy. And so this is only going to either make America, I've been using this analogy, and I think it's very helpful. America is a frog in a pot of water on a stove. And for decades, the water was increasing in temperature, and nobody knew why. Why is it getting hotter in here? I don't understand. Why do we keep spending more? Why does China keep getting more powerful? Why does the American middle class keep getting hollowed out? And then Trump came along and said, well, obviously it's because you're in a pot of water on a stove, stupid. There's the dial. I can see it right there. That's what happened in 2016. And then in 2020, you know, people were like, hey, I don't like being in a pot of water. Trump keeps messing with the dial. This is weird here. We need somebody else to turn down the dial. And they voted for Biden, and Biden cranked it to high. He literally just cranked that friggin' dial to high. And we all saw it, the people who had eyes, right? And America said, no, whoa. Well, we need the dial turned down. We only trust one person to do this. And again, 2024, a lot of people love Trump. He expanded his base 100%. But Trump didn't win because of a cult of personality. He won because of blowback for Biden overreach and a referendum on the lack of trust in federal government. That's why Trump won, to turn the dial down. And if Trump says, wait, what dial? I don't understand. That is not the right answer. The right answer needs to be turning the dial down. And so on every one of these major things, you can either increase the temperature or decrease the temperature. And if you look at like, okay, maybe we're ruled by a bunch of sick, demented, satanic pedophiles, and the system is either going to protect them or not. Like, how do you turn the dial up on that? And how do you turn the dial down on that? I mean,
they turned it up. They turned it up.
They turned it up. And we're getting to the point where we're going to just keep encountering even more egregious opportunities to turn the dial up or down.
Yes.
And it's like even the way he discusses these issues, there's a chance every single time to turn the dial up or to turn the dial down. And so when they say like, sir, how are you doing on the economy? Okay. The dial up temperature, maybe it's just not touching the dial, is, well, we did a great job and the Dow's at 50,000 and we're going to have the best GDP ever. That's not a dial down answer. A dial down is, well, it's great that the stock market's up, but there's so much more to do. Here are the things we're doing to try and make housing more affordable. And look at what we're doing in the meat industry and blah, 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 right? That's a dial down temperature. That's, hey, we see a vision of the future and we are currently taking action on all of these things. And we might not see success because I think America is past the point where we can all agree that everything's going to be fixed between now and November 2026, right? And so this is this is about vision, leadership and vision. And this is, again, people will say I'm a black pillar or doomer. I'm trying to offer a carrot because I think the bar is really super low right now. Is that if you look at your average Democrat voter, and most of these people, again, will look at somebody like Mamdani under 40 and be like, yeah, okay, sure. The guy really believes in me and I don't, they say he's a socialist, but we need to change and blah, 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 blah. But then your average Democrat, like core Democrat voter, doesn't need their elected representatives to have a vision for the future. And part of that is because they're less objective people. They're voting for the feels, like all these things that we know about the left. But part of that is because they're fundamentally winning. Like they're getting what they want. They're getting an increasingly powerful administrative state. They're getting a corporatist system that can continue to, redistribute wealth from the American taxpayer. They're getting their big government. They're getting their global homo. They're winning. The left is winning, and they're going to win by default unless the system's fixed. Now, the way the right approaches these problems is it says, well, we have these values that have always worked, and they're going to continue to work, and people will someday see eventually that things have gotten bad enough that we can get back to conservatism of decades ago, and that somehow the ghost of Ronald Reagan is going to come in and save us. And that's backward looking, and it's not vision. A vision is based on where we're at now, based on the stimuli, based on the temperature of the water that the frog is in on the stove. What does the future of America look like when Republicans and conservatism wins? And if that isn't believable enough to make people think that the temperature of the pot is going to go down, then the Democrats are going to win because they win by default. And the Republicans need to believe in their elected leaders in order to get that inertia, that momentum. And that's just how it is. They're the low propensity voter now. Trump built a big tent of a lot of first-time voters, a lot of people that showing up for the first time because of a referendum on institutional trust.
And Mark, we just talked about this. How you need to show an alternative. It's not enough to just sit there and on Twitter about that you don't like Bad Bunny. You have to give people an alternative. You have to give them something else to do. You need that. This is why it was so successful. And we've been doing that, by the way. That's the core of my business. Is every time that there's a news story, if it's just like the BLM story, I'll make the Kim Klacik ad. Right. And if there's a bunch of left-wing Marxists on campus, we can build Turning Point. And if it's East Palestine, you can go there and you can just hand people cash and make them feel good. And if there's nothing else to do, then you can just go take it and do an alternative. It's give, send, go. Every time we do a give, send, go, it's about that. That's the point. The point is to give people who are frustrated and angry an alternate vision so they can feel good and take that pressure, use that pressure release valve. Turn the dial down, as you say. And so, you're exactly right. You're toast if you can't do that. If you can't present, how much lamer would this current zeitgeist be right now, today, if we hadn't done that halftime show? If it had just been a bunch of people saying, wow, they can just do this to us and there's nothing else for us to do. Or you're going to boycott the NFL? Please, like that. Yeah, I wish NFL fans were strong enough to stand up and say we will burn our gear. We're done with our teams. We're finished here. But until we crack into that, the best we can possibly do is show the alternative. I would that is? Use this opportunity to call on the NFL fans. How much more of this humiliation ritual can you take? They're doing this to
leadership,
you.
Benny. You're talking about leadership. This is leadership, and Donald Trump's the leader of the free world. This is leadership. And it's angry tweets about this are not leadership anymore. They're not.
No, it's not. It's not. It would be very depressing if all we had was a couple of rage bait tweets from me and Matt Walsh and Jack Posobiec, right? Yeah. And that's what it would have been without the halftime show. And a bunch of people saying, wow, maybe we should have made an alternative halftime show. That's what it would have been. But instead you do it, and then this is how you win, right? And so great example of this, and the last question that I have for you is the SAVE Act. This seems like something that is obviously We've talked polling before on voter fraud, voter issues, voter ID, and that seems like such a no-brainer. Republicans, however, are so cucked and are
Yes.
such little babies, such children, that they can't even get behind like trying to get this done. Although people do love that there's finally a piece of legislation that's getting something done that they wanted and voted for. So where are we at on the SAVE Act? What are the chances of this thing moving?
You know, I'm not behind the doors in Congress, and I don't
Yeah.
know what the political calculus is, but I know that obviously, fundamentally, any like core principle that increases accountability and rule of law and fairness in America is going to be overwhelmingly supported by the mass majority of people, as is every election integrity measure. You know, we've covered this with you in the past. Everybody thinks the elections are stolen. Most people think the machines are connected to the internet. Everybody wants voter ID, and it's like this was the Trump that had the election stolen from him, such that it even changed his movement's news consumption patterns. Right, like everybody dumped cable on November 3rd, 2020, and it's like politically, anything around election integrity is the lowest hanging fruit that Republicans could ever be offered. Vastly bipartisan, you know, the zeitgeist of reforming a broken system. And it's like, if we can't even do this, like, I don't want to be too cynical and black pilled and stuff about this. Like, there's an aspect of Donald Trump has not been handling the Republican Party correctly and has diluted his endorsement and hasn't been building a pro MAGA Republican Party like he could have potentially. And that I look at your elected Republican leaders and I say, well, most of them will just ditch MAGA as soon as they can, because they're just looking for whatever like sort of cynical short-term trend that they can hitch their wagon to in order to increase fundraising. And that's negative. But, you know, I try to give Trump like a positive path forward, which is like, hey, like back in November, again, very like the what do we do should not be hard. Brutal, visible government reform and restore the American middle class through economic populism. Like, those are the two targets. Very big, very easy to hit at, right? But it's like when you're fighting with your own party, people don't think you're aiming at the target. They think you're shooting somewhere else, right? And so the goal is like, how can Trump partner with the Republican Party in order to like get big wins that don't fix things, everything, right? But that show that there's two hands on that dial turning the temperature down. That's what America wants to see. Trump and Republicans with both hands turning that dial in the correct direction. And this is the biggest and best opportunity. And there has to be a case made. And again, like fighting with the Republicans visibly outside where everybody can see it is not like this stuff with fighting with, like, I want the filibuster nuke just as much as anybody else, if not more. I've been calling for it forever, and I don't care what the Democrats are going to do with it. When you nuke the filibuster and pass the laws Americans want, the point is that then they vote for you again. And so the idea of Democrats using the nuked filibuster against America shouldn't even be part of the discussion. And by bringing it up, you're telling us all like that you're not going to do what we all want you to do, right?
Great point.
But it's like we can't have these fights out in the public. And it's like, if there's a conservative at all, if there's a person at all within John Thune and Mike Johnson who care about the future of this country and winning, then they need to get at least one win like this. Just show us you can do it. It's literally like the Shia LaBeouf meme. Like, just do it. Like, and they will be punished 100%. They will be punished. And I'm telling you right now, America is rebelling on Donald Trump. Not because they don't like what he's doing. They want him to do more. And we just saw it, like the numbers out today. We just asked, is America going to remember Joe Biden as a good president or as a bad president? And people say bad president, 47 to 38. But then we say, is Donald Trump better than or worse than Joe Biden? And 56% of America says the same or worse than Joe Biden. And so again, this is the guy that won with maybe not potentially a mandate, but a mandate for his platform. And every single thing that he's promised is significantly more popular than Donald Trump is. We just have to do that. And I mean, a vision of the future. Fighting with the Republican Party viscerally, visibly in the near term to get long-term wins doesn't paint a compelling vision of the future of Republican conservative governance. That's the catch-22. That's the situation we're in. And that's how Trump's got to figure out how to do that with leadership. And it's like, make that halftime show. Look at Epstein, right? What's the Epstein equivalent of what you guys did with the halftime show. Trump needs to do that now, immediately.
Yeah.
He could be like, this is a knife's edge.